In exactly 47 seconds, Donald Trump would realize that the envelope Denzel Washington carried was not simply a collection of papers. It was a genealogical warhead calibrated to shatter the mythology he had wrapped around his name for decades. But before detonation, silence ruled the Raven House chamber. Room 21 and 54, silence as heavy as marble columns and as polished as mahogany desks that had absorbed generations of political theater. Yet nothing they had seen before compared to the storm waiting to break. The air conditioning whispered its mechanical hymn, a sterile, white noise drone about to be drowned by the collapse of dynastic illusions. LED lights, clinical and merciless, bathed every face in forensic clarity. Every twitch, every bead of sweat, every betrayed glance would be caught by the predatory lenses arranged like hunters circling their prey. The air itself reeked of coffee steam, leather briefcases, and the metallic static of expectation, the unmistakable scent that always arrives before seismic political rupture. Denzel Washington sat motionless, a man distilled into discipline. His charcoal gray suit, perfect in fit, immune to wrinkles, was less attire than armor. His gold wedding band, catching the light, rested on hands folded with surgical precision across a series of envelopes aligned like weapons on a battlefield. Each tab carried its own color-coded payload: yellow for births, blue for medicine, red for DNA, black for letters. He had become more than an actor. He was a missile, truth-guided, fact-armed, steady in trajectory. His breath was a metronome of composure, his body language a study in psychological warfare. When he shifted a microphone or straightened a document, the movements weren't adjustments. They were warnings. His eyes, fixed, unflinching, refused to yield even to the most flamboyant narcissist in American politics. Across the chamber, Donald Trump slouched in the witness chair with the swagger of a man who had never considered his family narrative negotiable. His Brioni suit, $5,000 armor, and a red tie like a royal sash announced authority he claimed by inheritance, not battle. His fingers, restless drummers against polished mahogany, betrayed nerves his face tried to conceal. His practiced smugness hung like a mask, his gaze darting across the chamber with the instincts of a man who had always believed personality could bulldoze truth. His skin, artificially bronzed into a faint orange glow, looked radioactive under the sterile LEDs. His breathing, amplified by the mic, was not panic, but preparation. The inhale of someone expecting to seize control through sheer force of noise. The chamber breathed ceremony. Flags loomed in frozen solemnity, while the elevated dais split, Republicans and Democrats into opposing trenches of expectation. Journalists shifted, cameras hummed, smartphones quivered with anticipation, every device waiting to record history's pivot. Trump's lawyers sat like generals sensing an ambush, whispering frantic strategies no earthquake manual could resolve. The gallery buzzed with the quiet thrill of seasoned veterans who had felt political storms before, but never this precise, never this final. Chairman Raskin brought the gavel down. The crack ricocheted across the chamber, a sound less like a call to order and more like the beginning of trial by fire. Trump leaned forward immediately, breaking protocol, his words erupting before recognition. This is another pathetic witch hunt. My family built an empire, created jobs, lifted America higher than any politician ever could. My father, Fred Trump, was a visionary, a man who transformed Queens into a kingdom of prosperity. Any attack on him is an attack on American family values. His voice carried grievance disguised as patriotism, myth dressed as fact. He gestured wide, claiming space, weaving narrative as he always had, with unexamined certainty. Denzel did not interrupt. He let silence do the cutting. 3 beats of stillness, just enough to let Trump's mythology echo, then collapse under its own weight. His voice, calm, precise, cut through. Mr. Trump, Since you've chosen to raise your father's legacy, perhaps you can help us with a timeline. Fred Trump's business activity, specifically between 1945 and 1947. It sounded innocent, procedural, but lawyers on Trump's side shifted. They knew the tone of a question whose answer was already known. Trump launched into the mythology. Again, projects, construction, communities built, the same rehearsed script spoken 1,000 times before. He sculpted the air with his hands, claiming authority in gesture as much as in voice. But then came the scalpel, and specifically Mr. Trump. During the summer of 1946, June through September. Can you account for your father's whereabouts? The drumming stopped. One beat of silence, the tell Denzel had waited for. Trump's reply came, deflection wrapped in reason. My father was involved in many projects. You can't expect anyone to recall exact schedules from 80 years ago. It's absurd. His tone remained loud but lost its steel. A retreat, small but undeniable. That was when Denzel opened the first envelope. Manila, worn at the edges, heavy with age. He withdrew a birth certificate, New York City, dated July 15, 1946. The seal glinted under light. According to this document, Fred Trump was present at Presbyterian Hospital, not for business, but for the birth of a child. The mother's name, Elizabeth Maloud. He held it angled so the cameras could taste its authenticity without feasting on its details. Trump stiffened. His hands retreated from their expansive claims, shrinking toward his body. I have no idea what you're talking about. My father knew hundreds of people. This means nothing. But already he had erred, acknowledging the document before, challenging it, naming Elizabeth while denying knowing her, revealing contradiction in real time. Denzel leaned in. Interesting, because this same record lists Fred Trump not as a visitor, but as the father. The room froze. Even the electronics seemed to hush. Trump's face flickered, confidence strained by a crack in tone. That's impossible, he insisted, voice pitched higher than normal, betraying fracture. He leaned on the mythology. Faithful husband, devoted family man, mistake, misunderstanding. But mythology cannot fight documents. The second folder opened. Hospital records, full pages, clipped and bound. These files document the birth of Donald Maloud in July 1946. Father, Frederick Trump. Address identical to your father's residence. The name detonated like dynamite. Donald Maloud, the echo of a hidden bloodline. Trump's body language unraveled. Breathing shallow, gestures chaotic, words scattered. This is insane! A conspiracy! 80-year-old hospital files! This is madness! Gone was the measured deflection. In its place, rage and panic. Then Denzel reached for the black folder. Leather-bound, crimson wax seal, a relic with the gravity of judgment itself. The crack of the seal echoed like a verdict. Before we continue, he said, steady as stone, these documents have been carbon-dated, forensically authenticated, verified by independent experts. This is not theater. This is fact. He produced photographs, black and white, fragile, yet undeniable. Elizabeth Maloud, holding an infant, and beside her, unmistakable, Fred Trump, posture intimate, captured not as a businessman but as a father. The gallery gasped. Trump stared, a man staring into a mirror that suddenly reflected a stranger. His mouth opened, but no sound came. For once, silence defeated him, and still, Denzel wasn't finished. From the black folder came letters, handwritten, aged but sharp. These, he said, holding them to the light, are Fred Trump's personal letters to Elizabeth Maloud, dated June to December 1946. The documents did more than outline a relationship. They contained confession, paternity, and an unshakable promise of support. Donald Maloud. Denzel raised one letter, tilting it so the cameras captured just enough of the handwriting without, laying bare every line. This particular page, dated August 15, 1946, carried the words, "Our son Donald grows stronger every day, and I see so much of myself in his expressions." It was signed simply, "With eternal love, Fred." The room inhaled sharply. These were not bureaucratic hospital charts. They were ink and intimacy, the private voice of a father acknowledging the child he had sworn to raise. No cold seal could compete with this, the weight of responsibility etched in a man's handwriting. Trump's expression spun through a carousel. Denial, confusion, fury, and finally the hollow recognition of something cracking at his core. His hands shook in open view now, no longer capable of pretending control. "These could be forgeries," he stammered, voice breaking into desperation. "Anybody can fake letters. My enemies have been planting false evidence for years." But the bluster was gone. His body betrayed what his words tried to resist. Each twitch, each tremor, each shallow gasp revealed the panic of a man cornered by evidence too layered, too specific, too undeniable. Then Denzel opened the final folder. Unlike the others, this one was not faded or yellowed. It was crisp, clinical, stamped with seals and fresh signatures. A medical laboratory envelope, the kind of artifact no political spin could smudge. The letterhead gleamed with the authority of institutions: Johns Hopkins, Stanford, Cold Spring Harbor. This was not history. This was science. "Mr. Trump," Denzel began, voice even and deliberate, each word weighted with inevitability. "What I hold in my hands represents 6 months of forensic genetic analysis, conducted independently by 3 separate laboratories. The methodology has been reviewed. The results are irrefutable." Trump's complexion shifted, the famous tan paling into ash. Documents could be argued, photos dismissed, even letters challenged. But DNA? DNA was judgment at the cellular level. DNA was truth. "Fred Trump," Denzel continued, "shares 0 genetic markers with you. The probability of Frederick Trump being your biological father is less than 1%, essentially impossible." The silence was radioactive. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Then Denzel delivered the strike. "However, Elizabeth Maloud shares a 99.9% genetic compatibility. She was your biological mother." The air thickened. The silence textured with the sound of entire histories collapsing. Members of the gallery sat frozen, afraid to move, afraid to break the spell of revelation. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, as though machines themselves could sense the magnitude of the moment. Trump's response was a blend of collapse and rage. "This is impossible. My mother was Mary Ann MacLeod Trump, a great woman, a proud immigrant from Scotland. She and Fred built a wonderful family. What you're suggesting insults her memory and everything that makes this country great." But here was the twist. Mary Ann MacLeod Trump and Elizabeth Maloud were the same person. She had used her middle name in public life while reserving her first name in private correspondence. Trump had always known his mother. What he hadn't known was that his father wasn't Fred. Denzel's tone sharpened, surgical. "Your mother, Elizabeth Maloud, later Mary Ann MacLeod, was already pregnant when she immigrated. She had married a Scottish miner, Donald Maloud, in 1945. He died tragically in a mining collapse when you were 2 years old. Fred Trump chose to marry her and to raise you as his own, but you are not genetically related to the Trump bloodline." Tessu. Revelation detonated like a charge, rewriting Trump's entire mythology in a single blow. His inheritance had not been inheritance at all. His empire was not rooted in genetic destiny, but in Fred Trump's decision to raise another man's child. The edifice of inherited genius cracked and fell apart in real time. Trump sat motionless. His shoulders sagged, breath shallow, sweat shining on his forehead. For the first time in his career, his voice fell into a whisper. This changes everything I thought I knew. About myself. About my family. Denzel did not relent. His voice softened, compassionate, before hardening into truth. There is no shame in your story. Donald Maloud was a working man who gave his life protecting others. Elizabeth Maloud was a mother who survived immense hardship. And Fred Trump showed extraordinary generosity in raising you as his own. That is an American story worth honoring. But what cannot be accepted is the fiction you have built. Claims of genetic destiny, inherited greatness, superiority through bloodlines. Leadership is not inherited. It is earned. The 6 words reverberated like scripture. The room froze. Cameras clicked like gunfire, pens scratched paper, phones lit up as the phrase spread across the globe in seconds. Trump's defenses collapsed further when Denzel raised another folder. Financial records. Here are your tax returns from 1980 to 1990. During the decade you claimed to build your empire, you received over $400 million in loans, guarantees, and direct transfers from Fred Trump. You were not a self-made man. You were a man bankrolled by generosity. The genealogy now had financial teeth. His empire had not been carved from personal brilliance, but constructed on stepfather's wealth. And yet Denzel reframed it one final time, offering a way out. The truth of your life is remarkable. The son of a miner who died a hero, raised by a man who chose to love you as his own. That is your real inheritance, Mr. Trump, a story of survival, sacrifice, and second chances. But you chose to bury that story beneath fiction. The words carved the air. Trump's face cycled through resistance, recognition, and finally something closer to relief. For 30 long seconds the chamber was silent, watching him wrestle with a truth too large to escape. When he spoke, it was quiet, stripped of swagger. I need time, he whispered. Time to understand what all this means. History had shifted. A mythology collapsed, and Denzel's final words hung in the air, immortal. History doesn't care about the story you tell yourself. It cares about the truth. And the truth is simple. Leadership is not inherited. It is earned. By the time Trump left the chamber, shoulders bent beneath the weight of revelation, the world had already changed. The myth of inherited superiority had been shattered. What remained was a new rallying cry echoing far beyond politics. Leadership is not inherited. It is earned.